I went to a concert last night. It was a concert performance of a play, musical by Leonard Bernstein, composer, of Candide. Those of you who know Candide at all know that it's a work of fiction, in a sense, looking at the idea of the Enlightenment, that all is for the best in this best of all possible worlds. It's really about people living out an idea, living out of a concept, and trying to be true to a particular concept of life. It's a basically very funny take on belief systems, because these very innocent people who try to see good in everything there is are exposed to everything bad that can happen. They live through one tragic event after another to the point of absurdity. And they finally arrive at this place where they say, we don't know what to believe in. Essentially, all we can do is make our garden grow. Pay attention to the things in front of us, take care of the simplicity of our lives, learn to love what's in front of us, which of course resonates perhaps with what we're talking about in this class. The music is exquisite, full of beautiful themes. And it has a strange history in my life. When I was 17 or so, my Uncle Al gave me the album of Candide. And I had just moved into my first apartment, moved out of my home at Wayne State University in Detroit. And I was living with a group of friends. And for some reason, hard to explain, that album became the centerpiece, the thematic centerpiece of our lives. You can tell what weird people we were. We would listen to Candide all the time and laugh at it because it poked such fun at this idea that we would know anything about life, and and that this theme of all's for the best was something we all, in a sense, tried to embrace, and every one of us knew it didn't work out very well usually. And we followed this through our lives. And last night was a celebration of my friend Larry's 76th birthday, and on his 30th birthday, I had taken him and a group of others who were all part of this Candide world to see one of the first productions of it in New York after its tragic Broadway production many years before. It ran very few performances. Nobody liked it. Lillian Hellman wrote the book. Richard Wilbur wrote the lyrics. Bernstein did the music, but it just flopped. So finally they were doing a new production in New York, in Brooklyn, at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And I took my friend Larry as his 30th birthday present to see this production, and it was pretty special. It's pretty wonderful. And we have gone to see other productions of it along the way and discovered that there is no central production. There are various versions of it that are presented in various ways, and there were productions that had nothing to do with the album that we originally heard. So we had to open up to the fact that it was not a set piece. It was kind of a piece in flux, but it all had mostly the same music, and of course it all talked about all is for the best in this best of all possible worlds. One of the more enjoyable productions of it has everybody at the end singing this incredibly beautiful chorus about how you have to just make your garden grow. And they're all singing in total unison and total harmony, and after all the difficulties of their lives and all the drama, they have finally found the truth of just the simplicity of everyday life. And at the very end, and the last chord of that piece was struck, there's a cow on stage and it drops dead. And their whole philosophy, as everybody turned to look at the cow, was out the window, blackout. The end. Nothing to hold on to. I've had all these years, of course, of spiritual work, with all of the joys and beauty of that work and all of the themes that run through it and all of the evolution of it. But it brought me to a production of Candide last night, and it had a kind of wonderful thematic quality that's woven through my life, the way many of you have songs and pieces of music, I think, that must weave through your lives and kind of pull them together on some level. You hear certain pieces and they remind you of a kind of a lineage of being that you have that means something to you. And so this was happening last night, and at the very end, and it was one of the most beautifully sung performances of Candide I'd ever heard. At the very end, it was over, and of course there was no cow on the stage, and nothing fell over. And so it was left like, yes, this is the best of all possible worlds. We will tend to our garden, and everything will be what it must be. And then strangely enough, and I tell you this because it's such an odd experience, and we walked out into the lobby, all the friends who had gathered, who had been part of this long lineage, and we're standing there talking, and one of us in the group suddenly fainted, fell over, dead on the floor. And we had to call emergency. We didn't know if he had died or not died, if it was a heart attack. We had no idea what had happened. But it was like, really? Really? In real life, this thing happened? And there he is on the floor, and we're all standing around, and and everything in our lives is being challenged. Everything's up for grabs. Rudy's theme of, everything turns on a dime suddenly came shooting through me like, yep, there's nothing to hold on to. Now the happy ending, to the degree that there is a happy ending, is he was okay. He was lightheaded, something happened, he passed out, fine, we got up, we walked, he went home, and everybody's fine. But I felt the universe speaking to me. I felt that this was more than going to a production of Candide. This was more than a theme running through my life. This moment where my friend fell over was the larger theme of my life. That everything we hold on to, every philosophical idea, every thought, every belief system, everything we know doesn't hold up to reality. Reality basically takes it all away. Reality removes what was and what is and what will be into something else altogether. Every comfort zone that we hold to, that thinks it knows something, including who we are, what our life is about, what's important, it's all piece by piece dismantled. And we are left with, that's the big question, the existential truth. What is it that we are left with when there's nothing? The journey to that answer is your spiritual life. The journey to that answer is a journey. Or maybe not. Maybe it just ends. Boom, 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 done. Which may be fine. It may be just fine for many people, and that is all they have. They work their life to do what they can do. They have some good meals. They have some offspring. Perhaps they have some joy, some misery, some suffering, some glory, some whatever it is. Boop, done. I often have been saying to people recently that most lives don't read like a great novel, like great literature. They're more like a episodic TV show that's canceled. Boop, pull the plug, done, it's over. But we didn't have this. This didn't happen. We didn't. There was no nothing. Nothing added up. But somebody was left without whether they're going to have the baby or not have the baby. And the car crash almost. Did they survive? Did they not survive? Gone. Not there. No answer. Finished. But there are lives in which certain themes happen, in which there are even grace notes. And I thought last night, when my friend fell over, having watched this great moment that has woven through my life in such a wonderful way, I thought, the universe continues to speak to me. It's speaking something. It's teaching me something. It's showing me something. This is an incredibly beautiful note. I don't even understand it, and it was very scary because we might have lost my friend at that very moment, which was, for moments we were standing there, and it really could have been that he had died. And the depth of that, the intensity of that, the reality of the unknown at any given second is so enormous and so cataclysmic and climactic that it made me feel that we live in this symphonic state. And some of our symphonies are very agitated and very Shostakovich-like and have great dissonance in them, and they create a lot of discomfort and a sense of life as being disordered on some level, but at the same time, that disorder, when you have somebody as masterful as Shostakovich, it actually has a wholeness to it. It has a thematic richness to it, which is amazing. That is really extraordinary. Some scores are just discordant and miserable, and in the end, you're just so happy they're over. Great music, great symphonic music, like great lives, have these wonderful, wonderful idioms and themes and notes and grace notes and beautiful moments, along with all the other story elements that move through to a kind of crescendo. And that crescendo can be bombastic, and it can be vast, and it can be heroic, and it can be reaching into the heavens and exploding in some remarkable way, or it can be very light. It can be very delicate, where you had these big moments and small moments, and then suddenly it just comes down to, which is just as fulfilling and powerful as the big notes. What one wants in life is for the story, the narrative, or the symphony to have a conclusive wholeness, a sense of ultimate beauty. And how often does that happen? Beauty, as they say, is in the eyes of the beholder. But if you walk into a museum, I kind of don't care who you are. If you walk into a particular set of rooms, the rooms that resonate with you, whether it be 19th century romantic painting or impressionistic painting or expressionistic painting, if you walk into a room and suddenly you see something that goes, I call it the aesthetic moment. It just touches you. It speaks to you about something so much deeper and so much finer than the day-to-day noise of your life. It somehow brings it all together into a focus, and it goes deep. And you feel something of another dimension in yourself. You feel this quality of being that is resonating with pure beauty. It takes your breath away. It makes you understand there is a way to look at life that you may never have known or seen before. That somehow somebody has looked at the world and seen it in a way that you didn't know was possible. And they carry you upward anyway, in a sense. You carry you upward into a higher way of looking at what has always been there. The great artists of life, in a sense, are connected to a higher vision. And one of the things they tap into is this idea of universality. That it's speaking to you, but it's speaking to the person next to you and the person behind you and the person who's just walking in the room. This beauty is going, and everyone who gathers around it, or most everyone, has it. That it's speaking to a oneness. It's speaking to something that is not just personal. It feels personal, but you know it's more than that. You know it's greater than something that is just about you. And that knowing that there is something that speaks to everyone, that collectively it brings us together, is part of what art is about. It's part of what symphonic lives are about. When you're sitting in a room of people all immersed in the same sounds, in the same soundscape of incredible notes and rhythms and, again, themes that rise and carry you upward and drop you down and move you to the side and around and bring you back together. When you all go on that ride together, the universality of it is what is more important almost than the music itself. And where does that universal beauty come from? How does someone like Beethoven hear it? Especially Beethoven, as you know, who was in the end deaf. How does he hear this music that comes through the spheres, if you will, as they call them, into this manifested state and begin to cohere in such a way that they start to have a quality of engagement, that they begin to speak to you without words, without thoughts, just with a kind of beauty. Maybe feeling is part of it, but it's something that carries you somewhere, and it carries everyone simultaneously. This beauty has a source, and that source is not exactly in this world. Of course, it's in this world to the degree that we're all physically manifested, but it is of a subtlety that most of us cannot get to. If we could, we'd all be living symphonic lives that were really beautiful. We'd all be tapping into the infinite glory of beauty and truth, and we would be channeling it back into this dimension of life. But no, we don't all do that. We would like to, perhaps, we may aspire to it, but there are certain gifted souls that are able to rise up into dimensions beyond our normal awareness through a kind of profound focus and subtlety, and they touch this ineffable realm and they bring it back to us so we can know that it exists, that we feel it, that it speaks to us, and that it manifests not just for the moment, but that it fills our lives in a kind of thematic way. So I can listen to the Beethoven's Ninth and the Hymn to Joy over and over and over, and every time I listen to it, it hits at a different time in my life, in a different situation, and it has a different resonance. But all the times that it has played in my life involve a particular through line that has a fascinating beauty. Spiritual life is a life that taps into that realm. Spiritual life is an uplifting, uprising awareness that moves with great subtlety into a space of profound beauty, a profound stillness, a profound truth. And it begins to both lift us up and then filter through us back into the world in which we live. Does it turn into symphonic music, Gauguin, Monet? Maybe for a few people, but we're not all meant to be channelers in that way. But we are meant to be connectors, if you will, appreciators is another word, exponents of, listeners of something really exquisite that filters into life and begins to transform the mundane into the ethereal. We get to start to see life as these masters see it, and we get to appreciate it as they have appreciated it. How do we express it? I get a hug from each of you guys every Sunday morning. And I feel in that hug something of the same nature as Beethoven's Ninth. There is a beauty that comes through each of you that is real and is manifest and presents itself into the world, and I have a feeling I'm not the only person who benefits from your hugs. I have a feeling you carry this into your life with other people, that this thematic quality of your life is actually being felt and experienced in a kind of melodic way, in a thematic way by other people. And at the end of the symphony of their lives, let alone your own, they will know much of the beauty of the life they have lived was that you were in it, that you were a participant, that you brought those hugs, that ear, that ability to hear them, that ability to acknowledge them, that ability to reference something greater and more beautiful than they may have ever imagined or conceptualized, that you were a walking, talking, living voice for something beautiful. In the same way that Beethoven was, in the same way that Renoir was, you are an artist in a sense who is able to transform the dark, difficult struggles of your own life, which they all had too, by the way, into this thing that's beyond our daily life, that is transcendent of daily life. And they bring that back into this realm that we all share, and they add to the beauty of the human experience. I do know many people who do not do that. I know many people who do not rise up, whose lives are basically melodrama, whose lives will never become literature, will never become poetry, will never become anything, at the most maybe a pop song. In a way, the universe needs that. There is no judgment in it, but I will tell you, it's not the happiest, easiest way to live. To live in the drama of day-to-day life, in the dark up and down struggles of existence, is the lowest common denominator. It is the most singular of dimensions. The experience of multiple dimensions is the rising up out of that density into something lighter, subtler, more open, more expansive, more beautiful, more attuned, more light-filled, more truthful. As you rise up into those dimensions of being, you will be a channel of that truth, beauty, love into the world, and you will add to the symphony of every human being that you know. And of course, your own symphony will become transformed by it. The experience last night of watching and listening mostly to Candide and hearing these great, beautiful themes that were total failures in Leonard Bernstein's lifetime. You know, nobody was hearing them except for the record album that existed, the 33 1/3 LP. Nobody, I mean, it wasn't a big hit. You know, it was one of the failures of his life. And yet it became one of the central themes of my life and the life of my friends. And we still sing it, we talk about it, we laugh about it because it's wonderfully funny music in some ways. And then we get to go see it together, and then it teaches us in every possible way, including what happened last night, which was it went beyond the music, it went beyond the story, it went beyond the philosophy. It brought us right back into the core truth of the moment. That yes, we have to make our garden grow, and yes, everything will change. Everything will be thrown out the window. Nothing holds. Life is impermanent. It is a journey beyond, and every dimension of that was playing last night in my life. And if you want to have an amazing chord that comes out of a symphonic moment, that gives you that final moment of realization, if you will, that's what was delivered. It was so powerful and so beautiful and so complete and so incomplete, and yet it brought the whole symphony together. If you're lucky, your life will be that. Your life will deliver at that level. You will go, wow, thank you. That's all I can say. questions today. Okay, thank you.